You're listening to the Bird Dog Babe podcast with my mom, Courtney Bastion.
Going on a hunt, it challenges you in so many ways. It just on the mental, physical, spiritual level. You're just really, it's really a journey. And I think that it's one that has limitless potential to be interesting and informative and give you skills and capacities and self-reliance and confidence that comes from time outdoors and being a participant in the natural world, not just an observer of it. You have this immersive experience that really defines you as a person. So that I can't imagine anything more. And that's what got me. Mm-hmm. And if you can show someone what you're getting out of that experience, I think that they look at that and they go, what is she getting out of that experience? Like, I think that's really inspiring. And
hey, bird dog babes. My name is Courtney Bastion, and I am obsessed with all things bird dogs. And I'm here with you to share the stories, experiences, knowledge, and opinions from the women and a few guys in the industry that are killing it. I'm a Wisconsin girl living in a Montana world. I'm mom and two incredible kiddos, wife and occasional assistant to a pro gun dog trainer, traveling the U.S. talking about canine nutrition while hunting, breeding, and competing with my German wire hair pointers and Bracco Italianos. As someone who started hunting later in life because I wanted to give my dogs the opportunity to do what they were bred to do, I'm here to help inspire, educate, and connect women to get their bird dogs out in the field and experience a bond like no other. So pour yourself a glass of wine and get ready to be challenged and encouraged while you learn. This is the Bird Dog Babe podcast. Ladies, you will want to be in Kalispell, Montana on Saturday, August 15th. We are holding a Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever Women on the Wing event called Women, Wine, and Wild Game, which is presented by Walton's and sponsored by Excel Shooting Sports, Hound and Hare, Onyx Hunt, Kennetrek Boots, Gun Dog Supply, Hunt to Eat, Purina Pro Plan, Dewberry USA, and Big Frig Coolers. It's $75 for full registration to hunt over pointing dogs. Then you'll take your harvested game to the cleaning station and get in-depth instruction on different game bird cleaning methods. You'll have the opportunity for a gun fitting session and try out the Siren shotgun line on the shooting range, as well as enjoy some wine and camaraderie while Hannah Nickenow and Chad Harvey teach us about cooking some of their favorite game bird and wild game recipes. We have to limit this event to 30 people, so register now by going to my Bird Dog Babe Facebook page to get the link or search events on the Pheasants Forever website. A big welcome to my new Patreon patron, Sydney Hunter. I met Sydney at the first Women, Wine, and Wild Game event at Pheasants Fest in Illinois in 2018. So it was really great to reconnect, and she's been sharing some awesome podcast episode ideas with me. And Cindy is also an active member of the South Central Wisconsin Women's Pheasants Forever chapter, which is hosting a First Aid for Your Hunting Dog event on September 27th. So be sure to check that one out. Okay, so today's guest is Christine Cunningham. She lives and hunts with 6 English setters and a chocolate lab on Alaska's Kenai Peninsula. Christine authored a book called Women Hunting Alaska, which profiles female hunters. She has an outdoor column in the Anchorage Daily News, and she talks about her new hunting journal that is scheduled for release next year. Christine has a deep appreciation of hunting traditions and the experience. She was an adult onset hunter like so many of us that thought the challenge needed a wake-up call to her preconceived interpretation of hunting and took it as a call to adventure. She gives a beautiful illustration of white-tailed ptarmigan and refers to them as a polite bird. Christine's descriptions of the overall hunting experience is a new and rare one for me personally, as I feel I always have 100 browsers open in my head of where's my dog? Do I have my safety on? Will I remember to turn it off? Where are my kids standing? And this conversation has made me anxious to get out there and turn off all the noise and just enjoy the experience. So let's get after it. Thank you to sponsor Dakota 283. unparalleled protection for traveling to and from your favorite hunting spot. Dakota 283 kennels are a premium quality roto-mold with recessed handles on top for convenient and safe tie-down and makes it easy to lift up into the truck. I love the secure door frame with high security locks so I know my dogs are safe when I need to stop for fuel. An added bonus is the drain hole in the back, which makes cleaning a breeze when your dog has been run hard and put away wet. Head over to Dakota283.com and use promo code BirdDogBabe for a 10% discount. Thanks to sponsor Excel Shooting Sports, elite dealer of Cesar Guarini, Fab Arm, and Siren shotguns. Siren is the world's only full line of shotguns created for the female competitor, hunter, and shotgun enthusiast. Excel is one of only 4 demo centers west of the Mississippi. They give you the opportunity to actually try out a gun before you walk out the door with it. As an elite dealer for Cesar Guarini, Excel offers their customers unlimited pit stops of free service and tune-ups on all shotguns, a great way to have your gun in top condition for the upcoming hunting or target season. In addition, they're offering an exclusive deal to all of the Bird Dog Babe listeners for a free gun slip with each purchase, a $90 value. Hey, Christine, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you.
I'm so excited to have you on today and for you to share your story with our listeners. So can you jump into right away just telling us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. So my name's Christine Cunningham, and I was born and raised in Alaska. Didn't start hunting until I was 27 years old. I actually previously was more interested in fair weather, outdoor type things, and yoga and kayaking and hiking. And I had toyed with the idea of not eating meat for quite a while just because of food practices and the idea of animals dying for food. So it was kind of interesting when my partner, who'd been a duck hunter when he was young, was talking about how important that was to him. He was recovering from a near-death experience, and I thought, well, gosh, I still eat meat even though I have these reservations, so maybe I should go, and invited myself along. It was about 15 years ago, but when I went, it was really didn't have any idea of what I was getting into with duck hunting. When it was raining that morning, I was like, do we still go in the rain? And then we still go in the rain. That was the best time. And then we're on this swampy kind of tideland area, and there's rotting salmon and shrews and spiders, and so we're creeping along. He spots these 2 widgeon on a pond about 400 yards away, and he says, we're going to sneak up on them. So I said, oh, okay. So we're sneaking along like Elmer Fudd, and then he says, we're going to have to get down on our knees. I'm like, oh, okay, ew. But I'm down on my knees, and we're kind of inching along, and last part of it, he says, we're going to have to crawl. And I just thought to myself, oh, gosh, don't really want to crawl. So it was like, do I stand up and leave? Am I tapping out, or am I going to actually do this? And so I tuck in my shirt into the borrowed waders I had and my gloves, and I just start crawling, using my shotgun to clear my way, and kind of grin and bear it. And then all of a sudden I feel this tug at my boot, and I turn around and I say, what? And he says, what are you doing? And I said, I'm crawling. Well, he had trained officers in tactical maneuvers, and he never saw anybody crawl so fast in his life. I just was trying to get it over with. I wasn't being stealthy at all. There we were, right on the edge of the pond. And so I stand up, and the ducks don't move. And then all of a sudden they lift off, and he says, shoot. And I do. I'd been to the range and had practiced a bit before we went. And I just didn't even know what I was doing or looking at. I just kind of shot. And the ducks, it was a clean miss. They fly off into the sunrise, and I eject my one shell, and he picks it up and holds it up to my nose, and he says, "This is what fall smells like to me." And I guess I was kind of enchanted and curious, and I'd somehow bungled my whole first attempt, but I'd never had any understanding or idea of this whole other world. And I thought, I want to do this more. I want to figure out what this is. Something, it was like smelling salt. Something really spoke to me about how primal and raw and participatory that just that one time was. And everything happened from there, and everything is quite the immersive experience, as I could
for sure.
go on and on.
Yeah. I love that, because you caught more into that moment of everything around you and could see it from a different aspect other than just killing an animal, kind of like your partner had pointed out to you of this is the smell of fall, and the different attributes that go with the whole being out there and doing it.
Yeah.
I love that. So did you guys have a dog with you?
No, the dogs came later, and basically was when we couldn't retrieve a duck that had fallen across the slough. I thought, gosh, it sure would be nice to have a dog, like a retriever. And then I went on a pheasant hunt in North Dakota, also duck hunting, and I saw a little English cocker working, and I just thought, oh my gosh, the hunt wouldn't have been anything near as amazing if it hadn't been for watching this little dog work his heart out across 4 hunters all day long. I just was really charmed, and I thought, I'm going to get a dog. And I got a rescue chocolate lab, Jack, who did not turn out to be a hunter, but later dogs, both Labradors and English setters, did.
Awesome. So you were kind of submersed with a lot of duck hunting at the beginning then.
Yeah, I kind of went duck nuts. I was duckaholic. It was I think I even have an email that is duckaholic. I was that proud to be obsessed with it, going before work and on weekends, going to the range on Sundays. I just went full tilt into it. I just loved every nuance of being in the duck blind and first light and last light and the smell of the salt and ducks and everything I was learning. It was just such an immersion.
Mm-hmm. So what made you do the transition to Upland then? And how long did that take?
Yeah, things just happen the way they do, but then when you remember them, it all has this linear way about it. I was master of ceremonies at a Ducks Unlimited banquet, and there was a 28 gauge that was up for auction, and nobody was making any bids on it. It was gorgeous Beretta gun. It was nicest gun I'd ever seen. I hadn't seen a lot of guns, and mine was a fairly economical first gun. It was a CZ 20 gauge for ducks, and I just loved this gun. I want to have that gun, and so I started bidding on it, and I won the gun. And as I'm coming off stage, and maybe I'd had a little bit to drink and didn't check my bank account or what I was really doing there, my partner was in the back of the room, and as a kid in North Dakota, he'd seen 2 English setters hunt a field, and it was just sort of this setters are just such a romantic image with their feathers and the way they hunt, and it really captivated his imagination. And so when I got this 28 proper Upland gun, I'm coming off the stage, and he says, "You know what this means?" And I said, "I don't." And he says, "It means now that you have a proper Upland gun, you have to have a proper Upland dog." And then he had been looking at English setters, and we brought home Winchester, who is a Havelock setter from North Dakota, and he sort of taught me how to hunt upland birds.
I love that you had the gun first and then the dog, because so many times it's the opposite way around.
Right.
And a 28 gauge. So you went all out. Difficulty level.
Yeah, so the birds, right, the birds, I'd been going to the gun club and shooting trap and skeet every Sunday for a couple years. And it also would complete my skeet set, other than a 410. But yeah, so I was really comfortable shooting a shotgun. What I didn't really know was what upland hunting was about at the time. I didn't know about mountains. I'd been a hiker, but I'd never hunted in the mountains, and that's really something different. Same with ptarmigan. I'd grown up seeing them on the sides of the roads in the interior of Alaska. But what we ended up hunting the most, and my favorite game bird, is white-tailed ptarmigan, and they're really at the highest elevation of the 3 species that we have here in Alaska.
Mm-hmm. Is that typically snow covered where they are?
Yeah, so I kind of think of the 3 ptarmigan as being a lot like the big game that are in the same area. So I think of willow ptarmigan as being in moosey caribou areas, and I think of rock ptarmigan as being in goat country, and I think of whitetails as being in Dall sheep country. So if you're familiar with those habitats, that's kind of where I see those birds. And the whitetails are up there eating the little lichens and up there with the sheep. So it's year-round. Our seasons are really long here in Alaska, so you are up there in the snow most of the year.
Are you wearing snowshoes doing that?
Yeah, I tried skiing, but I'm really bad.
Skiing with the shotgun. That sounds like something Lanny Barnes would be doing.
I'm not that cool.
That's awesome though. So you had Winchester, so he was kind of your first upland dog. Do you still have him now?
Yeah, we still have. Yes.
Okay. And you've added to your pack since him though.
Yeah. After Winchester, we got Parker, another English setter from Havelock, and the breeder said this would be a good pair to breed if you want them to have puppies. And so my partner, I thought, well, yeah, we want to have puppies. We want to get 2 more. And so we bred them, and they had a litter. And I guess we didn't have the foresight to see that we weren't really breeders. And I got attached to the puppies, and we kept them all.
How many puppies did she have?
She had a bigger litter than survived. It was really, I think that's part of it. It was such a difficult experience. She was a new mom, and her milk didn't come in, and she had the litter over 2.5 days. So they were really struggling. So there's 5. We call them the puppies to this day. There's 6, but we named them all after shotguns like Winchester and Parker. Cute.
So tell me about raising them, because you kept them all and you raised them in a unique way. And so tell us about that.
I think one of the things that there's not a lot of opportunity. There are bird dog clubs in Alaska, but where we live and our work schedules and everything didn't really allow us to take them to like a game farm to train them on planted birds or that sort of thing. We did have that opportunity with Winchester. There was a place here, and we planted chukar for him and quail. But for the puppies, I mean, they were all raised on wild birds. They're not all hunters. Some of them are really good and big running dogs and great. Others of them just don't seem as interested in hunting. So we kind of just, because you have so many, you just see what they want to do. And so they were all raised on wild birds and trained sort of in the same way as Winchester, just really letting the dog work. I don't think that's ideal. I don't know that I would recommend, oh, this is the way to go. It's just what we had in it, and it so happened to work.
Yeah. Do you feel that you noticed any difference in how you raised Winchester and having the ability to do the pen raised birds versus maybe your puppy that has the most drive and is the best hunter compared to how that one was raised on wild birds?
For sure. So I kind of liken it to, for me, shooting trap and skeet versus shooting as a hunter. The trap and skeet are a game, and I think that the dogs even recognize that field trial type scenarios are a game. They notice what's repetitive and what's routine and what's a planted bird versus when they're out and it's wild. Just like as a hunter, it's a lot different to sort of react to things in the moment versus to practice something that is routine. And so there's benefits to both. There's huge benefits to both. I love going to the range and shooting, but it's very different. And so I think Winchester, even though he learned a lot, just like me, learned a lot from going to the game planted birds, just like I learned a lot trap shooting. If you do it too much, I feel like there's a point of diminishing returns. Like I think when I was trap shooting and I got super into it, I started doing things that hurt me in the field. So it's like at first it was really great because I got the great muscle memory. I built my upper body. But as time progressed, there were things that if I shot trap too much, I lost some of that natural response and instincts and things like that. So I think it helped Winchester. I don't think it hurt the puppies to not have that, just based on the whole circumstance. But it's hard for me to say, oh, it's a great idea to not train your dogs in structured settings. I just think you do the best with what you have. I mean, if you have access to that, definitely do it. It helps.
Mm-hmm. And so how often are you able to get your dogs on wild birds? Can you walk out your back door and you can have that exposure? Or are you having to travel?
Yeah, so where we live is a pretty good drive from the mountains where we would start hunting. Probably, I don't know my number of days hunting per year or how many days the individual dogs get per year, but I go as much as possible. Maybe if I was guessing, maybe 60 days a year for all of them, so they share it. And like I said, some of the dogs are good with spruce grouse, which we could hunt out our back door if we wanted, versus the big running dogs put in full days in the mountains. And those are typically day trips or just camping one night.
Mm-hmm. So do you prefer the bigger running dogs in the mountains then?
Yeah, so for the way we're hunting with whitetails, you really need to, they could be here today, gone tomorrow, kind of in any particular mountain valley that you're hunting. So that big running dog, they're actually finding the birds in places that you couldn't cover, and then they'll hold them, and then you just know, you determine where you're going to go based on where the dog is finding birds. If you have a close working dog, they're not going to cover as much area, so you wouldn't have the opportunity for white-tailed ptarmigan. If you were in a place, say if you're pheasant hunting or something like that, where there's a greater abundance of birds, I think you don't need a dog that runs so big. But the thing where we are is we can see them.
So like covey birds, they typically will come back to the same area. And are you saying like that? And I haven't hunted ptarmigan, so I don't know. Do they not come back to the same area?
Well, I would say that they do. So yes and no. I mean, you can find a big group of ptarmigan in an area, and then the next day or the day, 3 days or 4, and there's nothing, no birds. So they might move from valley to valley, and the area we're hunting is so big, it's not like you can just walk over to the other mountain valley. the going into these places is an effort and time in itself. So if you pick the wrong place, then you're not going to find the birds. They do move. It's not migration in terms of like the way waterfowl migrate, but they have small migrations.
Okay. Kind of around the same area then.
Yeah, so they're in the same area. It's just not always accessible to you to get to where they are consistently so that you could guess that a certain population is somewhere on any given day.
Okay. So when you said sometimes you'll come into a big number of them, like how many would that be?
Gosh, it's so beautiful. I wish I could share the gorgeousness of it, because especially in snow, yeah, you can go in and you just see this white covered area, and then the birds, when they lift up, it's kind of like just the snow coming up out of itself, and it's just beautiful, just the white on white of big flocks. And so you can come into hundreds of birds, or it can be small cubbies, small families of birds too. So, or picking them out along a stream, just like any of the game birds that are camouflaged. It's kind of like a Bev Doolittle painting. You'll stare at an area, and then all of a sudden something in relief will appear. It's really, as much as anything, hunting is almost like a practice. It's something that the more you do it, the more involved you are in it, and you start seeing more. Just even when you're not hunting, like we hike and to try and stay in shape, keep the dogs in shape year round when it's not season. And you just learn so much about the particular cubbies, when they're born, how the young are doing, how it just kind of like with pheasants, so much is dependent on weather. And it's a holistic thing that goes so much beyond dogs and guns and meat.
Absolutely. I'm having the most beautiful image in my head right now as you describe it. It's so cool. So when you're having hundreds of them get up, I just feel like that would be overwhelming.
My typical scenario is not hundreds of birds getting up and it being like a duck flock or geese. Okay. What it's most like in reality is the dog is going to point and hold a bird. I'm going to climb or walk to it. And when I get there, I usually pass the dog. The bird will hopefully, sometimes they'll run, but most of the time they will flush. I will pick the bird. And picking the bird is so fast. It's really what's the most likely best shot that you have. I know there's people that pick, like with ducks, drakes only, or the lead bird or the last bird. It really is instinctual. What's my best shot? And then you just take the shot, and usually you're doing a micro adjustments to wind and bird speed and how they're flying, whether they're flying up or quartering away or whatever it is. Just like a shot, coming out of skeeter trap.
Mm-hmm. So they hold pretty well then. Are they not pressured too much? If you're able to get up between them and the dog.
Right. So they're very polite. White-tailed Ptarmigan are like quail. They're tight holding birds. They really do rely on their camouflage. So their survival is in staying completely still. So the Winchester has held a bird for 30 minutes before. Well, I had to climb up 700 vertical feet to get to him, and it took me that long. And he kind of gives you that look like, finally, you're here. But yeah, so they're they will hold tight. Birds that are pressured a lot, that are in areas in Alaska that have more pressure, or hunters, or more activity from hikers, they act differently. But that's why I like hunting the birds that are at such higher elevations or deeper into valleys or less accessible, because then you have a more wild experience.
Sure. So can you kind of walk me through what a typical day of ptarmigan hunting looks like? In the morning, are you gonna pull in to the bottom of a mountain and then spend 3 hours getting to the top, or how does that work?
Yeah, so basically the drive is long.
Mm-hmm.
You're in the car for a while, and then when you get to the base, you usually get all your stuff. You have to have a a kit, take care of anything that happens to the dog. They get bloody paws, or the snow conditions really factor into whether we put Vaseline on their feet in the winter. So you kind of get yourself ready. You go up, and usually getting to where you can hunt is a couple hours. And then you usually hunt for a couple hours, and then you come out. So, it's a long day.
Are you camping up in that area at all then?
Sometimes we will camp just for one night. Like we'll either camp at the base or camp in if we want to get deeper into a valley. Sometimes it just makes sense time-wise. If, schedule-wise, it's hard to find lots of time. A few times a year we'll go into the interior, and then we'll camp for the time that we're up in the interior, usually hunting willow ptarmigan, rock ptarmigan, and rough grouse and spruce grouse.
Okay. So you have quite a few different species there then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you have the 3 different types of ptarmigan, rough grouse,
Yes.
spruce grouse. What else?
Mm-hmm. We've got the 3 rough grouse, spruce grouse. We've got sharp tail. In southeast, there's what are they? Hooters.
Mm-hmm.
We've got. I think I'd have to look to make sure I'm covering all of our game birds.
Okay.
But that's pretty much what I'm hunting.
That's awesome. You can see I'm planning this Alaskan hunt in my head right now. That's why we're doing this. What's the best time of the year to hunt up there?
For me, I don't know if I would recommend what I think is the best time. I really like February and March, especially March, just because we've suffered darkness all winter, and it's really nice to have those middays on the mountain because it's kind of like being on the beach. There's all this reflected light. It's gorgeous, especially when there's a nice crust on the snow. But for anyone not in love with the idea of snowshoeing into the backcountry, I would say probably September, October. I think the early season, it opens August 10th. It's probably a little too early. The birds are pretty young.
What do you feel is your most challenging bird there to hunt?
I think the higher the elevation is, the more physically challenging it is. A lot of people, getting your mountain legs is something that, it takes a little bit of practice to not be so exhausted by the time you get to the place you can hunt that you can actually pursue birds. Sometimes you hope your adrenaline kicks in, but yeah, I've taken people hunting for the first time in the mountains that aren't like acclimated to hiking in and things. And that's the biggest thing, is just getting in shape for those kinds of hunts.
Okay. And it's like around 7,000 feet. What would you say?
No, a lot of places we're starting at sea level. So probably 3,500, 4,000.
Okay. So there's this thing around the upland bird industry of which bird is king. Some say it's chukar, some say it's rough grouse. I mean, you've made your way down hunting the States here. What would you say is kind of considered the king of birds, of the upland bird?
I don't know if I'm like qualified to ornate anybody, but I mean, I really
just your opinion.
My opinion, I think that probably rough grouse is the best eating bird. In terms of my favorite bird, it wouldn't be a king, maybe queen. Is the white-tailed ptarmigan, just because they're such beautiful birds. They're all white, and they're super super polite, and they don't move down the mountain. They stay up there year round, so they're tough birds. You think about them when you're sitting in your cozy house. Wow, these birds are just still up on the mountain.
Yeah. I love how you describe them as polite.
I probably read that somewhere. That's probably not like mine.
What's your bucket list hunt? Is there anything upland bird you'd like to hunt yet that you haven't?
No, it's more the place. I would really like to hunt upland birds in Scotland. I just, the country, people will say, oh, this looks like Scotland up where we hunt. And so I'd like to go there and hunt upland birds, ptarmigan.
I feel like the birds are a little bit bigger over there. Have you noticed that?
Like
yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, the red grouse, which is what we call the willow ptarmigan. It does look a little different to me, just in pictures. But yeah, I would love to see.
So what else are you doing in your free time? You do some big game hunting as well, don't you? I
do. I think probably upland hunting and duck hunting are my favorite. I do some big game hunting. It's definitely nice to get a big haul of meat from one animal. But yeah, so caribou, moose, and just that kind of thing.
We usually do about one a year, or how often are you? Whatever fills the freezer.
Yeah. Well, I'm not so much that good, I guess. I will not take every shot, or I'm not that hungry, maybe, because it's really the whole holistic experience of it. So I don't, and I think to one of your questions, when you take a new hunter, I think one of the most important things is to not, if someone's never hunted before, for there to not be any expectations of, and to go at that person's pace. And, one thing I'll always think of is, just go your pace and I'll follow you, rather than try to have somebody go to my pace and then say, yeah, I'll take a break if you need one. And then they never want to admit that they need one, that kind of a thing.
Sure. Yeah.
Or that they want to have an animal or bring home meat so bad that it determines their response, instead of being like tuned into what's going on and monitoring, adjusting, and kind of checking in with yourself. Like, because sometimes I'll go hunting and it's like, this isn't that, I just want to watch these birds today, or I just want to, I'm not in a situation where I'm subsistence hunting, even though I would eat every animal that I bring home and that sort of thing. I'm not all about the meat part. It's sure. That's part of a bigger whole. So, I go hunting every year for big game, but I don't put a moose in the freezer every year or that sort of thing.
You dwell more into the experience of it all.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned that you've taken some new people hunting, and I saw that you have helped with like some youth hunts, and have you done women's hunts too? Do they have those there?
Yeah, we have Becoming Outdoorswoman is really big here, and they're just incredible program with lots of volunteers, and it's super dynamic, and so many women get started hunting through those relationships they build in different workshops. So the Becoming Outdoorswoman program is just phenomenal in Alaska, like it is many other places, but the quality of it is really just, who will show up, and so many people show up for that here. In terms of taking someone on their first hunt, I've done that more on a one-on-one type basis, just bringing someone along on what me and my partners like. This is what we do. You want to come? And yeah, it's really exciting. Just even taking my youngest sister fishing for the first time this past week, it's amazing when you're like, wow, I have skills that it's not just like teaching hunter's ed, where you have like a program or something. When you're out in the field, it's just like whatever comes up, and it's a conversation, and it's just super cool.
Yeah, that is. What do you feel is the most important part of inspiring women to give hunting a try?
I think that what really inspires the women I know is really that process of self-discovery and what you can find out about yourself in the experiences that you have in life. Going on a hunt, it challenges you in so many ways. It just on the mental, physical, spiritual level, you're just really, it's really a journey. And I think that it's one that has limitless potential to be interesting and informative and give you skills and capacities and self-reliance and confidence that comes from time outdoors and being a participant in the natural world, not just an observer of it. You have this immersive experience that really defines you as a person. So that I can't imagine anything more. And that's what got me. Mm-hmm. And if you can show someone what you're getting out of that experience, I think that they look at that and they go, what is she getting out of that experience? Like, I think that's really inspiring. And
that was good. I agree. What was it that helped you make that transition from going from waterfowl and upland to giving big game hunting a try?
Yeah, so I didn't know about big game hunting. I didn't know how I would react on my first time going for a big game animal. And so I didn't pressure myself. I just said, I might go on this hunt and not shoot. I'm not going to make myself, I don't want anyone to expect that. I want permission to have this be however it's going to be, because I certainly don't want to go out there and find myself crying, or not living with myself or something. Who knows? But when I did go hunting, there was none of that. It was an emotional experience, but I think my best big game hunting experience was this past fall when I went with 2 other women, and just going through a hunt with them. At the very end of the hunt, we'd clean the animal, the caribou, and we'd had all the meat packed up in our bags, and we were about to head down the mountain. It was an alpine hunt, and it was pretty tenuous because it was getting dark and it was raining and it was cold, and we had to get down a rocky area, and the packs were pretty heavy. So we were kind of like, okay, we got this. We got to get out of here. We're going to stow the head where bears won't get it, hopefully. And we're all heading out. And one of the women I was with, she says, no, I'd really like to just cover the animal and face it, so that it has the view. And it was just I know that it doesn't have to make sense, but I loved that mattered to her, that's something she thought about. And it was respectful in her way. And I just loved it. We went over there and we covered the animal's body with the hide and kind of moved it a little bit. And it felt right. And I was like, oh, I love this. I love the little things you can do that are a conversation. It's not just take. It's, if there's something that you go a little deeper into life and seeing how other people do that. And this lady was super experienced hunter and just a very kind of metaphysical person about everything that she did in life. She's a doctor, and really being out in nature was the way she restored herself and found health. It was energizing. So there's people who go into the outdoors and it'll drain them or they'll get tired, and there's other people that are energized by it. And so that's really inspiring to me.
And you, Christine, you do a lot of writing, and you wrote a book called Women Hunting Alaska. Can you tell us about that? It was about, was it 17 different women that you have in the book?
Yeah, so I love that. It was back when I was deciding about big game hunting and I wanted to learn more about it. So I joined a bunch of these different online forums, women's only groups and stuff like that. And asking questions. And I just wanted a female perspective, because so much of the literature is really this sort of dominant narrative about hunting. And I had these, what's it really like? What's it like for you? And these kind of private one-on-one conversations and emails were emerging. And I would tell one lady I was talking with about this other lady, and it was just like this really great network. And one of the women I was talking to was like, you tell our stories to each other so well, you should just tell our stories. And I was like, well, I can do that.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of how the idea happened. And I mean, in hindsight, I would have loved to have just gone on a hunt with all 17 of those women.
Right. Was there one woman's story that just it kind of really sits in your memory of that was beautiful that you want to share with us today?
Yeah, there's some good ones
a lot
in there.
Mm-hmm.
I guess for me personally, there's a Julia Hines. She's a doctor in Haines. She was the one who suggested the book, and her story was probably the one I identified with the most, or was most inspired by, is probably the correct way to say it. And she was diagnosed with cancer this past year, and she's gone through all of her treatments now. And she was the one I hunted caribou with this past fall. And so I hadn't met her in person, but we'd had this correspondence going on for a decade. And to meet her on the mountain in that place that she loves so much, doing something like that in recovery was really phenomenal. I just think that's one of the great experiences of my life, to have been able to spend that time with her and see her in her environment.
That's awesome. And you also write for the Anchorage Daily News.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of writing do you do for them? What are the topics about?
Yeah, so that is a every other week I share a column with my hunting partner. He writes one week and I write one week. It's an outdoor hunting and shooting column. And I really love it because it's a way of sharing with a general audience. So the readers it's not just a hunting audience. It's a general audience. And the best experience of that is feedback from people who aren't hunters, who can relate to the things you're talking about. It's just really rewarding.
Do you have any new projects that you're coming out with and working on right now?
Yeah, I have a project I'm super excited about. I'm working on it with another gal who is born and raised in Alaska. And it's kind of like what I was talking about with the emerging stories and a greater diversity of views. We're doing a magazine that it's not a woman-only magazine. It's just led by women, but it's kind of exploring the journey of hunting, and it kind of goes deeper into why instead of how. Okay. So more stories and from people who have a unique worldview.
Mm-hmm. Why they're hunting, why they got started.
Yeah, it's definitely more about where you're coming from. So it's not that sort of profile style. Mm-hmm. It's more in depth, just like to go into a story like you're there. Like, what is this person's life like? What is their experience of hunting? What is their hunting lifestyle? What does that look like? And just sharing those stories and getting a different take than kind of this more polished view of hunting, or the stuff you read that just kind of all follows maybe the same hero's journey. This is more just one person sharing their story.
I love that.
So a lot of hunters that aren't writers.
When can we expect that one to be out, and where could we find it?
Well, we're working on it. We've had a few surprisingly had a few setbacks because of everything that's going on, but
Yeah.
we did put up a website that's just kind of a place to go for writer's guidelines right now, but it's called traversejournal.com.
I just have some fun questions for you now.
Okay.
I mean, those were all fun, but some just random ones. Do you have any exciting hunts planned for this year?
Yeah, I think they're all exciting. I did get a permit for caribou in an area I haven't hunted before, so that's exciting.
Cool. What kind of shotgun do you use right now?
I have several different shotguns, but I'm kind of have a new Browning Superpose that I'm excited about using this year. It's a 12 gauge. I really like my Beretta 28 that I told you about.
So do you prefer upland hunting with a 12 gauge then over like a 20?
For white-tailed ptarmigan, I really like the 28. They're
Okay.
really small bird.
Okay, a 28 for that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but everything else you prefer to use the 12?
I do.
Okay. What's your take on hunting apparel of fashion versus function? Because in your photos, you have a really unique, beautiful look about you when you're hunting. Oh, I know you're blushing, but but it's almost like a British traditional style. Would you say that that's on or no?
Oh no, I think it probably the boots I'm wearing, which are kind of like a barn boot type style, which I really like because I like to have a lot of my feet to be able to move. I don't know if I recommend them for everyone. I wear pretty thick socks. But yeah, I definitely like the idea of function over fashion. I mean, I don't want to look bad, but especially when the dogs look so good, you know, you want to, it's kind of like you've got this great looking dog. You don't want to look like you're, you know, just coming back from a drywall job.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are some of your favorite brands and hunting clothes to wear?
You know, I really love Prois just because I love the people involved. But I also, I mean, there's a lot of great brands out there. I really like Cool and some of the other brands that kind of mix materials to where you know, where you need movement, where you need maybe waterproofing or brush protection. So I really like a lot. It seems like we've come a long way in getting smarter clothes to be able to choose from.
Yeah, for women. I agree.
Yep.
Yeah. You had mentioned the boot earlier. What kind of boots are those?
I have two different ones, and they basically look the same. The Dewberry boots, and then they're Dover boots, and they're basically just leather boots. So some people might not want to do that just because they're heavier. What's
your favorite piece of Prois? What's your go-to?
I really like the brush pants, but that's I'm mostly upland and duck hunting, so I really like some of the older stuff that is like the Sherpa. I keep wearing the same thing year over year, but I love it. I like the new Cumbrae pattern. I don't have a lot of it, but I think that's a great pattern.
Yeah, I agree. When you're bird hunting, what do you all keep in your vest? What are your essentials that you just automatically are packing in your vest when you go hit the mountains?
Water.
Yeah.
I always take the whistle for the dogs. Let's see, beef jerky.
Yes.
Little emergency kit. Let's see.
And I'm sorry, did you say an emergency kit, like for the dogs?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And what else? Shells. Those are important.
Those are critical.
Yeah. My license.
Yep.
Always carry that with me. Chapstick.
Yep. There's so many pockets. I'm always intrigued to
Right.
know what people fill them with.
Put the chapstick in a different pocket than the shells.
Yes. Yeah. And I use that Burt's Beeswax chapstick, which is the same color as my 20 gauge shells.
Like this one.
Yes, that one. Yep. Looks just like a shell, doesn't it?
It does.
What is your favorite game bird recipe?
I am super simple, and in my next life, I'm going to be this great culinary person. In this life, I have not quite managed it yet. I'd love to do more. I like frying up the breasts in butter with spices and rice. That's my favorite meal.
Okay. What's your favorite big game meat? Not necessarily a recipe, but which big game do you prefer the taste of?
I really like caribou. It's I guess I associate moose and salmon with what we had to eat as kids.
Mm-hmm.
So caribou feels like a real treat.
Okay. Did your parents hunt as well?
No, nobody
No.
in my family knows.
Okay. So I love that. You started everything when you were, would you say 20, 25, 22?
27.
27? Yeah.
Don't start doing math.
I didn't ask how old you are right now. If you had to live anywhere else besides Alaska, where would it be?
I don't know. I'm really attracted to Wyoming, Montana, Colorado, Idaho, and I think that's just because of the hunting opportunities and the people.
Have you hunted in all those states then?
I've hunted in Idaho. I guess I've just I guess just Idaho of those states.
Okay. And you have a chocolate lab as well, right?
Yes.
How did that one come about?
Yeah, so we had Jack, who didn't like to hunt, and then we had Gunner, who was a great, gorgeous chocolate lab, just a big boy, and then so we felt like Jack needed a puppy, so we got him Cheyenne, and she turned out to just be this amazing little go-getter of a duck dog. She's a much smaller lab.
Do you do Upland with her as well?
She likes to get grouse. She loves to retrieve, but mostly she likes duck hunting.
Yeah. Do you ever do Upland with the pointers and her together? I'm sorry, the setters. I meant pointing breed, but I'm thinking pointers and flushers, but I mean your setter and retriever.
Yeah, we've done that. It doesn't work out as well as in my head, but yeah, we've definitely done that.
If you were to add another breed, not necessarily a bird dog, what would it be?
Yeah, Chesapeake. I'm really curious about learning more about those dogs, and then an English Cocker is really what got me started. Just being so in love with that little guy that in North Dakota. So
yeah, they are a cool little breed. When I was over in the UK, I was on a hunt, and there were several cockers on the hunt, and they were just so amazing to watch work.
I would love to that would just be so fun to learn what that dog's all about.
Yeah. It was so funny though, because there was even we were at like a gamekeeper's place a different day, and he had 3 different looking dogs, I'd say all smaller, and I would ask, what breed is this? What breed is this? And they were all cockers. and then when we went on the hunt, it was the same thing, just to find out all these different types of dogs were all cockers. And so I'm like, not much for consistency, but they were all pretty dang amazing to watch.
Oh,
they're a cool little breed.
I bet. Yeah, I've only met one. I'd love to. Yeah.
All right. How can we find you on on Instagram? Are you on Instagram, Facebook, website?
Yeah, I'm those places. Let's see. My Instagram is, I think it's Cunningham _Christine.
Okay.
And I'm on Facebook and a little bit of Twitter, not much. But.
Okay. Well, I will tell listeners to tune in to follow you because you have some pretty awesome photos of dogs and your scenery there in gorgeous Alaska. And you have some pretty fun adventures of hunting, that's for sure.
Oh, thank you.
Well, thanks for joining me today, Christine. I really appreciate your time and sharing your insight and wisdom with us.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Bird Dog Babe podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and learned something from the content, please share it with your friends. Please subscribe, rate, and review this podcast on whichever platform you're listening from. Check out the show notes for links to references from this episode, as well as info on how to connect through Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. If you're loving this podcast and want to support the production and content, please consider becoming one of my Patreon patrons. Being a patron connects us more on a personal level where I'm able to help answer questions and give advice. My husband William and I have bred, owned, and trained AKC Master Hunters, Field Champions, NAVDA VCs, and AKC Show Champions. We're excited to not only share what we've learned, but also listen from previous and future episode guests for additional content. Go to patreon.com/thebirddogbabe and $5 per month and you're in. And as always, 2% goes to conservation. Until next week, bird dog babes, keep them versatile.